Welcome to John's Tarot. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I hope you all have had a great week, and it's nice to see you again. And I hope it's nice for you to see me. How nice it must be for you to see me. Anyway, like I said, I hope you all had a great week. I'm getting over a pretty bad cold. I'm surprised I'm even doing a podcast this week. But I'm feeling a little better, and I'm going to go ahead and go forward. This week, I'm going to talk about an experience I had, about 10 years ago, I guess. And I had an experience where I encountered, and I'll just call it this, the goddess Sophia. And I don't know if any of you have ever heard of it. The goddess Sophia comes to us from a great antiquity. It's mentioned in the Bible. There are buildings dedicated to the goddess, the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, which I was fortunate enough to visit. And let me just tell you the experience. It was so bizarre. This was several years after I had done my ayahuasca experience in the Peruvian Amazon, and I was just kind of, for some reason, driven to study Terence McKenna. So I'm studying the Terence McKenna material and ethnogenic experiences, and I decided I was going to do an ethnogenic ceremony, and I went ahead and studied up on it and how to do it and blah, blah, blah. And I went ahead and I went up into the local mountains and, I fasted for a day and then I went ahead and did the experience. And during the experience, it wasn't anything I wouldn't normally expect. Just kind of bizarre things, machine people and things like that. But then at the end of the experience, everything got quiet, and the little voices said from the experience, they said, "Here she comes." I said, "Well," and I had an experience with this entity, and this entity described itself, I says, well, as a entity of great love and wisdom, and that had been following mankind for multiple generations. And I'm like, yeah, right, sure. And what do I refer to? And well, actually, my experience at that time was more like awe and wonder. And I says, well, how do I refer to you? What do I refer to you as? And the entity said to refer to me as Sophia. I said, okay, that's just fine. We can do that.
Oh, far out, man.
Oh, wow. And that's kind of how that experience was. And okay, I packed all my stuff up and I came home. And I was very curious. This experience impacted me pretty powerfully. And I looked up Sophia on the internet, and you could have dropped me with a feather. What Sophia is the spirit of divine wisdom, or goddess of divine wisdom. I had no idea what that is. I have no idea, like the spirit of divine wisdom. And it has been with us for thousands of years. And it's been identified through cultures throughout the world. I mentioned the biblical resources. There's biblical sources to it. It's mentioned in the Bible, in the Catholic theology, the spirit of divine wisdom. And then it's also, like I said, the Hagia Sophia, and there's other architectural structures throughout the world which are dedicated to this divine wisdom, this concept of divine wisdom. And one of the things that the entity told me during this experience, now this is just my experience, and we're going to, in future episodes, I'm going to do 3 episodes on this. I'm going to mention more of an academic point of view, and I'm going to mention what does this mean for us today and in the future. But in terms of, it told me that if I needed to access this wisdom, that I could contact it through the tarot, and I was already reading tarot at the time. And it shows up in the tarot at several instances. It shows up in the tarot with the High Priestess, as she is the veil between consciousness and the unconsciousness, intuition, hidden truth, sacred memory. It shows up in the Temperance card, the Alchemist of Opposites, the Harmonizer. She restores balance through divine insight. The Star, hope, purification, a return to spiritual clarity after the collapse of the tower. She appears to us in the Justice card, objective truth, cosmic balance, the blade that cuts illusion, and then the world, wholeness, completion, the integrated self, the final stage of awakening. And Sophia, the goddess, is something that appears to us in the tarot. And this entity told me that if I wanted to contact that wisdom, I could access that wisdom through the tarot. And that's what I've been doing. And then I had one other encounter with the goddess, and what it basically revealed to me was that it talked about divine love, and it talked to me about sounds so bizarre. It talked to me about divine love, and it asked me, well, what do you love? And I said, well, I love my wife. And, I love my wife more than anyone. And my wife was the only one to ever show a reciprocal love to me in my life. And, and Sophia found that as a very interesting concept. And it relayed to me that she has that type of love for all of mankind. And that was where my love was so small and limited to my spouse, that this entity had that type of love for the entire world. And I this is some interesting stuff. What does that mean for us? An encounter with divine wisdom, an encounter through wisdom through maybe the tarot. And this is just my opinion. I think it means we are in very troubled times in terms of what's going on in our society, with our politics, with the little information bubbles we all live in. What is the truth? And we need to have access to divine truth, to a divine wisdom that helps us see through illusion, see through deception, and see through falsehood. And many people, including myself, need to have this ability. Now, I'm going to talk about it next week, not next week, the next episode, as a Jungian concept. Don't get turned off by that, but a scientific concept. But we need to have the ability to see through falsehood, to see through deception. That's why I get so frustrated with the news, but especially with Fox News, where I'm going. I have a low tolerance for BS. Because I'm seeing through the BS, and I'm seeing through my own personal truth. I guess it's more my personal truth. And one of the reasons I am doing this series has to do with helping other people wake up to find their own personal truth, to see through the illusion that our media is feeding us, our society is feeding us. And that is what this whole thing has been about, is how to wake up to a more personal truth and less bullshit. I'll just call it what it is. So, that's my experience. You can go ahead and send me an email or comment on this, and just say that, and say whatever you want about my experience. But that was my experience in terms of my encounter with the goddess. And to this day, it's still a very impactful thing for me. I see the goddess as Gaia, Hagia Sophia. Gaia, it's more, has to do with the earth. It has to do with the cosmos. There is a Gnostic concept too of the Hagia Sophia, and I'm not going to go into it a lot. But let's say you're a Gnostic, you identify as a Gnostic. What is that? Somebody who identifies as an agnostic is somebody who's saying, "Well, I don't know. I don't know." So if you're identifying as a Gnostic, you're saying, "I know." I have proof. I have identifiable proof in my own life for the existence of Sophia. So that's how I identify a little bit as a Gnostic. So let's go ahead and do a real quick tarot reading. My ability to read tarot is a gift, an expression of divine love, and I'm here to share it with you in that same spirit. I talked to you a little bit about where I received that gift. Let's say somebody else, and I do not promote anybody else following the path that I did. There must be an easier way in order to contact that wisdom of Sophia, that Sophic divine wisdom. And this has been with us since Greek times even. The goddess Athena had that type of wisdom. The Egyptian goddess Isis also had aspects of divine wisdom. So these concepts are not new, and I'm not making them up. They've been with us for a long time. In our society, we just tend to ignore them. We have our limited ways of looking at divinity. And in our ways, if you just use that one Judeo-Christian method of looking at these types of issues, you're limiting yourself, in my opinion. So how does someone access the wisdom of Sophia without going through such extreme measures as I described? How does somebody access the divine wisdom of Sophia, or if you desire something closer, you might have to go ahead and you might have to go ahead and use the methods I described. Look up Terence McKenna and do a little study on him and figure it out. Because I'm not going to promote such a thing. How can an average person access that divine wisdom of Sophia? And I described the tarot cards as a great way of accessing that divine wisdom. How could somebody access, in our modern day, the divine wisdom of Sophia? Okay, I'll cut the deck and I'll see what we get. My first card is the Ace of Swords. The Ace of Swords. So I'm asking this question. Sophia, the divine wisdom of Sophia is now being defined as the Ace of Swords by the tarot. Truth, cutting through falsehood. The Ace of Swords also has to do with winning legal issues. And you see the sword, the mystic hand holding the sword, and then the crown, and the wreath, which is victory. So cutting through illusion is where you will find victory. That is the point of the Sophic wisdom, or the divine wisdom of Sophia. And then my second card, the Hermit. This is a journey. If you're going to take this on, this type of journey, it's kind of a mystic journey, and a lot of this journey is going to be done by yourself, independently. There are people out there like me who can guide you, who have been down this road. And again, I'm going to point you to Terence McKenna. There's guides. But the journey itself, the journey to enlightenment, the journey to divine wisdom, the journey of awakening is a solemn journey which everybody must take on their own. And that's kind of a warning from the tarot. You embark on this journey. Part of that journey is on your own, and the journey of the Hermit. But the Hermit, you see, he has a staff of wisdom, and he has a lamp of enlightenment, and the staff of knowledge guides him. The enlightenment lights his way, and you'll receive some help along the way. And it's not that unusual of a journey, really. It's just unusual in our modern society. We just accept what they tell us, and nobody wants to take these mystic journeys. But there's people out there who'll help you. I'm one of them. Send me an email. I'll be glad to tell you the little bit I know. So it's a journey of truth. It's a solo journey. It's a solemn journey. It's a journey of independence and what's it going to lead to. And then the Nine of Wands is, I always call this the card of the veteran. And the veteran is somebody who has been through many battles. You see, he has a bandage over his head, and he stands with another a wand in his hand, ready to take on another battle. He feels the journey. He feels the battle is worth the effort. He feels that it is worth taking this on. And in my experience, it will make you into a veteran, kind of a spiritual veteran. And was worth the effort for me to take on this journey in order to counter this type of Sophic divine wisdom. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up for today.
Goodbye, Professor Marvel, and thanks a lot.
Well, it was my pleasure. I hope you enjoyed today's little podcast, and I hope you turn in later on the week and catch my next podcast. We're going to spend the week on my next couple episodes on different aspects of the divine wisdom. So until then, be careful, be cool, be kind. Remember, have faith, find courage, and I'll talk to you a little later in the week. Okay, bye-bye.